All right, guys. Good evening. Welcome back from a extended summer break for Darren and I. We took the summers off from doing the programs, but we're back, and we're back in full force with one of the probably the most important or best to my heart programs that we can do, which is an elk program. We've got some great talent here tonight to answer questions and to talk about things. I'm going to introduce everybody, and then I'll let Darren in here to say a few words. But I just want to say welcome back, everybody, to All Outdoors. And I'll just start on my screen from left to right. Here we got Travis O'Shea, two-time world elk calling champ, and the owner operator or the manufacturer of Wapiti River Outdoors. Absolutely best mouth reeds, bugle tubes, elk calls I've ever used. So thanks, Travis, for joining us. I know people are going to probably be interested in your what you have to offer as far as a manufacturing point. We've got I've got people joining in here, and I'm going to, as soon as they join, I'm going to kill their video so that they can just watch. So if I'm distracted here. Well, I'll do that in a second here. We've got Dieter Kaboth, four-time world elk calling champion, a guy that I met a few years ago, have a ton of respect for. I don't think there's anybody that can call elk better than Dieter. Dieter, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
We've got Blair Mitchell. Blair is like our third co-host on this program. He's been with us on almost all of our shows, has so much to add. Blair's been hunting elk himself for 30 years as well. He's a big game guide in Saskatchewan. So Blair, thanks for joining us again.
You bet. I'm an alcoholic. I love this stuff.
That's my handle for Snapchat, is alcoholic.
There you go.
Of course, we got Mike Friesen. Mike's been with a good friend of the program. Mike and I met about a year ago, became good friends. Mike's got his own program, Pursue the Hunt Live, and he does basically the same thing. And of course, he's joined us on a few programs, and a big elk hunter. You see a 6 point in the back. So Mike, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, my co-host Darren Wandy, one of my best friends. This guy's killed a bigger elk than I'll ever kill, I can tell you that. So welcome back, Darren.
Good to be back, Muck. Good to be back.
So Darren, I'll let you say a few things if you have anything to say. I'm just going to minimize these guys' video so that it doesn't clog up our screen.
Sure. I just wanted to touch base a little bit on a couple of our guests tonight. Travis, I don't know Travis that well. He's been to the Parkland Outdoor Show a few times, and I know that his elk wealth knowledge is going to be well accepted here tonight. Muck speaks highly of the product that you produce, Travis, so we're lucky to have you here tonight, so welcome.
Thank you.
And, a good friend of ours from the south, Mr. Dieter Kaboth. I've known Dieter for probably about 5 or 6 years now, just kind of off and on through a mutual friend. It started as, but got to know Dieter through a mutual friend, and met him in person at the ATA show. And man, if there's one guy that has a bunch of connections in the hunting industry, it's Dieter. And then when he speaks about elk calling and how to talk the language to elk, like Muck said earlier, it might be tough to beat somebody with his knowledge. So Dieter, good to see you. You're coming out of COVID hibernation, I can see, and glad that you're on here tonight. So good to see you all.
Sure, appreciate it. I've been out scouting for elk and been seeing a bunch of bulls and been having a lot of fun this summer so far.
So for the guests that are watching and stuff like that, before we get into chatting with all our guests tonight, I've got your videos turned off just because it doesn't clog up our screen. You guys should be able to see us as well as hear us. If you have a question, and this is all about for you guys. So if you have a question, type it into the chat, and Darren will monitor that, and he'll interrupt us and he'll bring it up. So if you have a question, I mean, this is interactive. This is for you guys. So I want you to ask questions from these pros. And then, as always, when we get to towards the end of the program, I will give everybody a chance to ask a question on the video for these guys. I think we lost somebody, didn't we? Blair. Oh, there is a chat already.
Yeah. No, I'm back. Sweet.
That's me. I'm just writing a message to everybody.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's briefly go over some history here, guys. I'll start with you, Travis. Just give us a kind of a quick bio, what you got going on there, and so people know, where you're coming from.
Okay. So basically, I fell in love with elk calling when I was a little boy, like 10, 12 years old, hunting with our paws, just like normal, probably for all you guys, I would assume. And back in those days, elk were just established here, and my dad and them were not big in the calling thing at all. So I hunted a couple of years with them, and then I realized I'd heard my first elk out in the bush, that I had to get on this calling thing right away. They were all pushing bush and cut line to cut line like we always did. But the calling thing just grasped me right away. So like most of you guys, I grabbed the reed that first year, and I struggled and struggled and struggled that whole first year trying to learn any sounds. Back then we learned out of magazines and stuff like that, and it was tough. So, but finally was persistent, got past the gag reflex of it all, and I started making some good sounds, and then just kind of hunted and did my own thing for the next few years. And then finally, before I started Wapiti, I got into the Canadian Elk Calling Championships, and just, a couple of friends pushing you to, hey, go call in this, you'll do well. And then, so we did really good there, and that pushed me into the world stage in Las Vegas. Thought, well, did pretty good at the Canadian one, so let's go to Vegas. And at that time, I was using all my own calls that I was building downstairs in the basement, and it was pretty cool to actually call on that stage with your own product. Nerve-wracking, didn't do very good the first year. I'll be the first one to admit it. You get up there and your hands shake, and you just hope you can get the reed in your mouth. So, but got through that experience, and it bit me. The world calling thing bit me hard, and I'll honestly say, like, my elk hunting passion was born way before all that. We hunted with a couple buddies, and we've all shot lots of elk and stuff. But moving on to the calling thing, it was a big step, and it changed the whole game totally. Versus not calling and just pushing bush kind of thing. So calling is so interactive. That's what led me to it. That's my passion right now. I buy an elk tag every year. I don't even care if I shoot something. I just want to go out with you guys and all my buddies and whoever wants to go. I'll do all the calling. You guys can shoot till you're whatever you want to shoot, right? And it's just the calling is the passion that leads me to everything. So how did you get into manufacturing your own calls and then to actually produce them? Yeah. So that actually came up. I was using another manufacturer's calls, getting ready to go to Worlds, and I was having to buy 6 or 8 of the same reed just to try to get one that would actually make the sounds that I wanted it to kind of make. And I was just at my shop one day, and I was very frustrated. So I literally tore an elk reed apart, see what makes this thing tick, and went down to the local steel shop, got them to cut me out some little frame pieces so I could bend them with pliers. And I literally took a spandex latex glove and cut the palm out of it, stretched that across the frame, and squished it with my vice grips. And lo and behold, I had a latex in a frame. So I took some duct tape, slapped her over it, folded it over, and cut it out into the shape of an elk call and threw her in. And I'll be the first one to admit, it didn't sound the best, but for my first elk call that I ever made, dang, it actually worked pretty good. I remember coming home that night and showing my wife, Carrie, hey, hon, look I actually made this. She's like, you didn't make that. I'm like, yeah, I did. So I figured, well, we're onto something here. So then I, started researching and found some suppliers where I could get some latex and stuff like that. And I was only intending on building for a couple friends and stuff like that. And then it kind of took off from there. The need for elk reeds, it had kind of tapered off at that point. And I think I just hit it at the right spot where the reeds were starting to grow again. And now the popularity of elk reeds, they're second to none. Guys are just buying them like crazy, and the sounds you can produce out of them, it's amazing. Throw some voice deflection in there, and it's amazing what the reeds can do now. So that's kind of how it all started. And here we are 6-7 years later, and going strong.
And one thing that you guys probably all agree on is with elk hunters, and particular people that use mouth reeds, once they find something that works, it's very hard to draw them away from another product, because you get used to something. And we were talking this before the program. I've been using this particular brand since 1990, and it was really hard. Like, I was using this particular call when I met you, Travis. I had this one in my bag and in my pouch, and I haven't used it since I started using your stuff. But just to show you that it's really tough to draw people away from what they're used to.
It is, yeah, really. And I don't push anybody towards any brands whatsoever. If guys use the Wapiti stuff and it works for them, that's awesome. If another brand works for you, that's what I always say. Like, stick with the reed that really works good for you. Try the other guys out, because there's lots of awesome manufacturers out there, and just find the one that works great for you, and your confidence level will just goes through the roof. And if you're confident, you get out there elk hunting. That confidence, that's all it takes, really. So.
Okay, well, thanks. We're going to move to Dieter now. Dieter, why don't you give us a quick background of how you got into it, and in your path to the worlds, and what you're doing these days?
Oh, man. So sorry, I swallowed wrong right at the bad time. Let me compose myself. So I started in 1985. I wanted to learn how to elk hunt. I moved out to the west from the Midwest, and learned how to hunt whitetails and stuff in the 70s, and heard these elk scream at you and stuff. So I was telling Travis earlier that I went and bought a Wayne Carlton elk calling tape, and in my job I travel a lot, and I would just practice blowing diaphragm elk calls in my vehicle. And the first time they had a World Elk Calling Championship that I was able to go to, I won it. And then with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, they have the World Elk Calling Championships every year. And then I won it 3 other times. I won it a total of 4 times. But there's a lot of good callers out there. I'm not bragging or anything. I just got lucky, a few times. And there's times I bugled, I thought, the best I've ever bugled, and didn't even get in the finals. And there's other times I didn't bugle as good as I thought I usually do, and I won it. So it's hard to tell. You're bugling with judges, but to me, more than anything else, over the years, learning how to elk call and communicate with the animals. I've been lucky enough. I've called over 120 bulls to a kill, so I've had a lot of experience calling elk, using the diaphragms and external calls both, and been pretty fortunate. When I started elk calling, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, and winning the World Elk Calling Championships catapulted me into the elk hunting industry and into the hunting industry in general. I worked with Michael Cooley for quite a while. He's the founder of the Sportsman's Channel. I helped host his show for a while, and I worked with Hunter Specialties over the years, being a part of their television show and part of their pro staff, traveling around the United States and Canada, giving elk hunting seminars and teaching people how to call elk and how to actually hunt elk. So that's kind of my resume in short. Currently, I'm working with Bowtech Archery out of Eugene, Oregon, and I'm loving life. I got a place up in northern Idaho, not too far from Canada, and I also have a place in Arizona, which is produces monster bulls the way they manage the area. Real similar to the bulls that you guys have up north. Just big, heavy, massive bulls. So I've been very fortunate to kill elk in Canada and a lot of the western states. And I do want to share this with you. Elk are elk. I don't care what part of the country you're hunting, in Canada or in the United States, elk are elk. And the way they've evolved over thousands of years, you can really use these calls to your advantage. And I think Michael's going to talk about later. We're going to do a live YouTube chat type of a thing where you folks can call in and ask us questions specifically. And I don't know how long the time is set up, but I think we're going to be there for a couple hours. So whatever questions you have, you can ask any of us, and whatever we can do to help you learn, we will absolutely do that. I just want to say one more thing, Muck. I've been lucky enough to win the world championship. So's Travis. How I call the worlds isn't necessarily how I call for elk to the freezer. And there's times I've bugled at elk, and if you think you're going to call in every elk you hear, you're not going to. Every year I am humbled by elk. If you think that you not got this down and you know it, you don't. But you have to be able to try to read those bulls, understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. And when you can start to do those things, and we'll talk about it maybe a little later here on the 21st, but once you learn how to do those things, it'll really start to put the odds in your favor right away as far as being successful in the field. That's all.
Yeah, like one thing that I talk about when I'm doing presentations is there's the calling for people side of bugling and cow calling, and then there's the calling for actual animals. And you can be the greatest caller in the world, but at the end of the day, calling in a wild animal, you don't have to be the greatest caller or anything like that. And sometimes you could be a great bugler. It's intimidating to people when really at the end of the day, we just want people to be successful. Okay, so I'm going to bring in Blair. Blair's, of course, like I said a few minutes ago, Blair's been part of the program since we started. And I really wanted Blair here because he's a big elk hunter in Saskatchewan. Blair, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Oh, it's going good. It's going good. And yeah, like Dieter, I started elk hunting when I was 15 years old, I think, and I went to my first elk calling seminar, and Wayne Carlton was doing it in 1987. And from then on, it's been a complete, it's just something that's in me. It's a disease almost. It's like an alcoholic. I eat, sleep, and breathe elk. That's all I can think about right now till August 25th when the season opens. But I love doing it, and I've been doing it just in Saskatchewan elk hunting. I haven't gone anywhere else. And just enjoy being out there. And I've taken a lot of friends out over the years and called in a lot of bulls. We've killed a lot of big bull elk. We got a 380 some last year. But I just love doing it. I like being amongst guys like this, like-minded elk hunters. It's a passion and an obsession. I just like helping people out and learning as I go along the way too, because you always learn something. Like Dieter was saying, every year you get humbled by bulls, you always learn and pick up on something like that every year, and it'll help you.
And of course, we got Mike. I introduced Mike earlier. Mike's he's got a nice 310 bull right behind him there, nice 6-point. Mike, thanks for joining us, and tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, so like right now, what we got going on is I'm located up over here in BC. So first thing that opens up for us here is moose, and then September 1st is when the elk season opens up here. This is my bull here. It was actually the first elk hunt I ever went on. And you got to be lucky to be good and good to be lucky. That's how that whole hunt went down. And we had been bugling with 3 or 4 other bulls besides this one. And it was late in the morning, like 11 a.m. We were just leaving, and my buddy was calling. And he's like, oh, we'll just do one more bugle before we leave the valley. And this guy here just screamed at us, and he was running in at the river flats, and we met up with him, and it all went down really fast. He came into 15 yards. swirled the wind, took off, went broadside again at 40 yards, hammered them. And it seemed like it was all like we were out there all morning, and then it all went down in like 5 minutes. But been fortunate enough to call a few elk myself for my buddies, which was really fun. I definitely learned that the cow call for me is much more successful. And yeah, I'm excited to learn just as much from Travis and Dieter as well here. So.
And Darren, what do you got going on down there?
Well, being a teacher, I don't get very much time to actually hunt. My first experience with elk was, I don't know if you guys can see that, 1983. That's me right there on top of that elk. And that's my dad and his hunting partner. They shot a beautiful 6x6. And I remember that very clearly, that my mom had got me out of school that morning because my dad and John had got that. So since then, I didn't really have much of an opportunity to hunt elk. In 2009, I was lucky enough to harvest a really nice bull. He scored 350 and 7/8. And since then, since that first experience of that bull, my first bull, I've been wanting to try to get back into it. Obviously, I haven't been lucky since 2006 with the lottery here in Saskatchewan. So I've gone a couple times just open elk hunting, and just with limited time and being able to get out, haven't harvested too many elk in my day. But I'm going to try again this year and see if I can maybe do some archery elk hunting and go from there. But I don't know if there, with the exception of maybe the red stag, I don't know if there's any other animal that kind of gets the hair risen on the back of your neck and kind of raises the hair in your arms when it comes to elk hunting. And I know the people that are involved with elk hunting that really truly are passionate about it, they are alcoholics, like Blair said. They just live and breathe it, and they can't wait for that season to start. And when it's on, they're on. And you follow the chats and stuff on up here 306 Hunter, and guys are asking, are the bulls calling? And then they're all getting fired up and ready to go. And I that's true passion when it comes to hunting. So yeah, it's fun. It's fun to watch, fun to listen to, but I like to try to get on and do more of it. And I've been learning to use the reed calls and I was also asked to take my craft outside because I was annoying my wife. So I've been practicing in the garage, but I definitely need to get better with the calls for sure.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not going to get too much into me and elk, just that I've been guiding elk since 1990 when I fell in love with it. I've been fortunate enough to travel all over North America, from Arizona to Wyoming, New Mexico, and British Columbia. And I've had the pleasure of calling in bulls at every spot of those. And Dieter, I just love what you said when you said elk or elk, because it doesn't matter if you're here in Saskatchewan, like I was last year, called in a couple of 6 points for some buddies, or if I was down in the White Mountain Apache Indian Reservation in Arizona and called in those big bulls there, elk or elk. And they actually, they might, depending on what region you are, they might rut at a little bit different times, but they still act the same. And that's why it's great to have all you guys here doing this. I don't want to take up too much more time with that because I know we've got lots to cover. So Travis, I want to start with you, and let's talk about the actual elk reed and why it's successful and what makes up a reed and why does it work so good.
Okay. So basically, and so you guys all know like what Muck's talking about, this here is just a huntress reed. It's just a really light single latex. And what Muck and those guys are talking about, basically, they're real successful using the cow sounds and stuff. So light latex with that reed, basically the sounds come off super, super easy. So guys learning that are, you're just trying to learn how to use a reed and stuff like that, a single light latex reed is going to be the easiest one to start getting some sounds out of. And basically you'll see there's a dome on here. Most of the reeds nowadays have a dome. They just have a little bit. What the dome does, it basically stays centered in your mouth, and the reed doesn't turn sideways like that. Like if you don't have a dome, especially when you're a beginner, they'll try to kind of go cockeyed on you a little bit. So the dome kind of helps prevent that and makes it a little bit easier for you. And then when I try to teach people, I don't know if you want to show too much muck, but just quickly, what I try to show everybody, just put it on the middle of your tongue. And if this is the tip of your tongue, just raise the back of your tongue. So it feels like your front tongue is lower in your mouth, touching your lower teeth, and you're touching your upper molars with the back of your tongue. So kind of like that. And then all I do is I use the air in my chest and I just hiss out. Just hissing that nice warm air. Just pretend you're like a snake or something, and you're just hissing, and that sound will come out. And obviously that's not an elk sound, but you just raise your back your tongue up a little bit, and that's how you change the tones. So that's the kind of the basics of it. And like you say, just start with something, any reed that has a really light latex, and that's going to be the easiest for you.
Travis, what when people try these and they have the gag reflex, what's your advice for trying to get over that? Because I think that's probably the biggest hurdle.
It totally is. And I'll be honest with you, I was one that had it as well. And still, like this morning, brushing my teeth. You get in there and you're brushing away, and I gag and stuff with that as well. So with the reeds, that's kind of why you'll see my reed's the only reed on the market that has the little cuts. So that allows all the sides to fold independently. So it'll actually form to the palate of your mouth, because it actually goes up in the roof of your mouth where it sits. And that's kind of my gag tendency. It kind of prevents a lot of that. Not 100% with everybody, but it has helped a lot of people. So the only other way around it, put the reed in your mouth and don't do anything with it. Give yourself 4 or 5 days, throw it in, move it around, do whatever you want with it. Have it in your mouth, a couple minutes at a time. Pull it out, and I haven't done anything on that reed whatsoever. So once you do that for a couple, 2 or 3 days, your brain's going to take over and you're going to get bored of doing that. It's like a piece of gum or food or something. You're going to get bored. And so eventually you're going to try blowing on it. And you've had it in your mouth for a couple days before this, a minute at a time here, a minute at a time there, put it in, take it out, put it in, take it out. Your mind and your body is just going to get used to it, and you're kind of going to get past it automatically. And people don't even realize they're getting past it, and that's helped a lot.
Dieter, do you have anything to add about that?
Well, what Travis said is really important. I'm using a little different call here, just different brand, different, doesn't matter. And again, like Travis said, go out and buy several brands and, try to find out which one works best for you. But if you, like he said, also, if you do have a diaphragm that does work good for you, still experiment. Keep always experiment. Try to find out that something might work better. I can't wait to try one of Travis's calls here personally to see how I like it. And I'm sure that I will. But this is what I've won all my championships with here. It's just a brown triple reeded call. It's worked well for me. The domes and their little palate plates or the domes work better for some people because it forces off of the roof of your mouth. But Travis made a really good point. You got to get a really good seal in the roof of your mouth with this diaphragm in it. And if you don't, when you blow on it, when you hiss, like he said, like a snake, it's going to sound like radio static. It'll go, you want a good, clean sound. There's so many things you can do with this diaphragm just briefly. Not only can you bugle, cow call, you can turkey call, coyote, goose. It's a pretty versatile device if you can master it. But again, it takes a lot of practice. Some people it's easier than others. It took me a while to learn it. Like I said, I like Travis, I just put it in the roof of my mouth and just start messing around with it. Yeah, and that's what it takes. There's other calls as well. I want you to remember this about calls in general, and this is the best advice I can give you. Elk are herd animals, and within every herd structure, you've got mature animals and you've got subordinate animals like calves. Grab that calf, or that Loman call you showed me earlier, Muck. I want to show people something here really quick. So with a diaphragm call, it allows you to be hands-free. It's a great tool. It's an awesome tool to have. It's my go-to. It's every time. But what I like to do is I like to mix it up. Here's a couple different companies, couple different brands. I'm not promoting any one brand here, but these open reeded calls produce like a mature cow sound. Muck, hit that Loman of yours. What he's doing is he's pinching with his teeth hard, going, ee, makes the high note, and he's letting up slow. Yeah, goes from a high tone to a low tone. That's a cow call. Now, if Muck uses that call, I'm using these, plus I have calls like that too, plus the external calls, plus the diaphragm. Now I'm making herd sounds. I'm not just sounding like I'm one elk out there. I'm making it sound like I'm a subordinate by using the bite and blows or a little bit younger type sounds. I'm using a diaphragm, and I'm also using the external calls. Now I'm making herd sounds. Elk are herd animals. And when you're hunting elk during the rut, if you can sound like a buffet of girlfriends, it really increases your chances of calling elk to you. And we'll talk about bugling later on, but I just wanted to touch base on those cow calls real quick.
Yeah, I would just want to add one thing about the reeds in your mouth. And what I tell people is the best, and Dieter, you hit on this right on the very beginning when we first introduced you, is you learned to call in the car. And that's where I learned to call too, was when I worked in it with a truck and I could drive around, I put in there. So if you're trying to learn and not to make your family mad at you in the house, the best place in the world is in a vehicle. And even just to get rid of the gag reflex, because generally we spend quite a bit of time in our vehicles. I say, put it in your mouth. And then I say, talk with it, because when you talk with it in your mouth, it automatically vibrates the latex. And that's when you were
talking, I heard it.
Yeah. And so I say, put it in your mouth for a few minutes and then just talk with it, and you'll get used to that tingling, because it's really the tingling on the roof of your mouth or on the back part of the roof of your mouth that makes that gag reflex. Everybody can put it on their tongue, but as soon as they put it up into place is where I find they have problems with it. So I say, put it in your mouth and then just talk with it. Eventually you'll vibrate that by talking with it, and then sooner or later you start going, rah, rah. You start putting sounds to it. That's how I got over the gag reflex.
Yeah. And just remember when you're talking on it, that sound's all of a sudden turning on by itself. Keep that in your memory bank.
That's right.
And where that sound comes in, mimic where that reed was, and bang, that's where it has to be for you.
And one thing I will say, people that I've coached to use reed call, I'd say good majority of them say they can't use it, but through some coaching and good tips, they always end up being able to use it in the end. So don't think that you're one of those people that just can't use it. Because yes, at the very start, it might feel like you can't, but you can. But you trust me, you can do that.
That's why when I mentioned about Travis's diaphragm calls, I think those cuts he has in that diaphragm are very unique to where a novice hunter can learn how to use it. Like you said, everybody's mouth's different. Because when you take a regular diaphragm call, most of them, when you put them in your mouth, no matter the size, a lot of times you'll get those folds. After you use it over a while, over time, in those exact same places where he cuts those notches out. So I think for first-time elk callers with that kind of type of diaphragm, it's more versatile for an elk hunter to use that in his mouth. That's what I think his calls, like that's a revolutionary thing, I think, with your diaphragm calls. That's a step above the rest, as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, when Muck sent me those diaphragms, as soon as I put it in my mouth, I could tell right away the difference in that diaphragm call, just notches. So that's a unique thing.
Yeah.
And plus it doesn't, the moisture doesn't build up on the call as much. You know what I mean? From prolonged use. It seems to clean off quicker. So that's what I really like about your diaphragm calls.
Yeah. So, Travis, let's talk about, because I want the second half of the program to be talking about actually hunting elk. Let's get through the gear first. So there's reeds, there's soft bites, there's the open type. Dieter, I know you want to talk about some of that, and tubes and stuff like that. Let's go over the equipment that people can use and the versatility of each one.
Okay. So I'll start off with the reeds, because that's what I have here. And then I'll let Dieter talk about the other ones, and you as well, Muck. And myself, when I go to the bush, I pretty much have a cow reed and a bugling reed. I do switch it up a little bit, but it's only for those certain bulls where you have to go in and give him a couple of cow calls, and he's coming already on a string kind of thing. But the reeds themselves, and that's what you did notice. Yeah, you did notice the cuts there. Sorry if I can see that. I was finding the same thing. My reed was bunching up. It would like literally bunch up in the corners. So I was literally, well, there's got to be something a guy can do about that. And there was nobody else doing it on the market. So at first I had just cut just a little V in it. And I thought, well, it actually worked. And growing up, I was always under the impression that the sound went over went over top of the reed to make the sounds. But in reality, the reed is in the roof of your mouth up top, like that. Basically, if my fingers would be the roof of my mouth, it's pressed against the roof of your mouth. So in actual reality, the air is going across the latex. And when you vibrate the little latex, that's where the sound is. Much like when you were a little kid and you plucked a piece of grass and you put it between your thumbs and you're like, squeaking on the grass. I think we all did that as kids. The air going across the latex vibrates, and that's where you're getting your sound. So, and how I showed you earlier how I kind of teach everybody to get the sounds up first, and don't worry about what sounds you're getting. Just get any kind of sounds, like Muck was talking and sound came out. Once you progress from there with a reed, it's all in your tongue, just raising it up higher and raising it down. And so what I tell a lot of people, guys come up to me at my seminars all the time and at the trade shows, Muck, that we do. They say, well, I can cow call, but I can't bugle. And I'm like, well, if you can cow call, you can bugle automatically. So I'll teach them this little scale. And that's just my tongue raising it up, raising it down. Once you learn all that control, you have a cow call, you have a bugle, you got anything you want in the reeds. And I'll just turn it into a cow call. Bugle. Just throw a little voice in at the end, and that's all you're doing. Bam, you got a bugle instantly. So the power of these little guys, that latex is amazing. And don't get me wrong, they don't last forever. I mean, I'll mostly use a Reaper through all of September. That's my go-to bugling reed. And unless I lose it, that reed will last me all till September 25th, 27th, in that area. But I do honestly lose a few. As you're walking, you're chasing elk, you're holding it in your fingers, you're wearing gloves for the most part. I drop them. So make sure you have 2 or 3 of those if you're going on a hunting trip. Don't bother looking for them. If you drop it, the Reaper's black. You're never going to find it anyways. So grab a new one out and keep on going. That elk's waiting for you. And yeah, basically.
Just, sorry,
Yep.
Travis, go ahead.
Yep. Just use it till that note kind of goes away, that bugling note. Once it stops hitting that high note, it's pretty much worn out. It'll be still be a good cow call. but hitting the high notes, you're going to struggle. So basically keep that as a cow call, because a soft reed is really nice for getting all that nice yearning stuff. But a nice tight reed gives you that high pitch that you're looking for anyway. Yeah, go ahead there. Sorry.
I was going to ask, I know like with a bugle, guys will use a tube, or in Muck's engineering, he's got a little kid's baseball bat that he uses for an amplifier. Do you use an amplifier when it comes to the cow calls, or is it just strictly bugles?
Yeah, I do. Believe it or not, I have the rump shaker. That's exactly what I'll do. And I don't just use it for bugling. I don't do all my cow calls through it. But if you're doing like a calling set that's 8 or 10 different cow sounds, you're throwing in calves, you're throwing in different kinds of mews. I'll do 1 or 2 through the tube, and basically the rest are just my mouth, and I'll cup my hands and kind of hold it into my glove just to bounce the sounds around. Do a couple behind you, you know what I mean? Try to make it really believable, basically, is what you're looking to do.
Like Dieter said earlier, you're trying to get that herd sound, like the pack going on. So when it comes to that, and Dieter, I'm going to pick on you here. Give me some ideas of what that looks like when it comes to calves and cows, and maybe a mature cow and a young cow. What are some of those sounds? What are they sounding like for a novice hunter like myself when it comes to calling elk?
So since we're on the topic of diaphragms, it seems like a lot here. I'll show you a couple techniques that I use that you can really throw the pitch around to make it sound like you're a calf to a mature cow using a diaphragm. So like Travis said, put it in your roof of your mouth. And again, the pressure, you're putting pressure right here on the latex right here. Turn it up this way. So when you press soft, it's a low tone. As you steadily increase the pressure, it goes from a low tone to a high tone. That's a bugle. When you press hard with your tongue, not real hard, but when you press firm with your tongue and then come down slow, and that's why Travis was moving his hand almost like a conductor, showing you the pressure of his tongue. Soft to hard as a bugle, hard to soft as a cow call. But I'm going to show you a couple tricks you can use with your lips where you can make it sound like a calf or a cow. Travis touched on a couple of really good techniques that I use as well, but let me show you this little technique right here. If I smile and use the call like this, it'll sound like a calf. If I bring my lips to an O, it'll sound like a more mature cow. You hear that? Mm-hmm. And again, we're trying to make herd sounds, right? So when I start doing like what Travis showed earlier, I do this in the woods. This is my routine if I'm trying to make it sound like I'm more than one animal. Close your lips. Okay? Kind of give you an idea of how to make those different sounds and how to produce calf, cow. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, absolutely, it did. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one other technique, or one thing you have to understand, and this is through the evolution of my hunting experience and being around these elk a lot over the years. Elk make a relaxed sound within their herd structure, and they make more of what I call an anxiety type of call. When they're more nervous. When they're more nervous, if I hear them do this, I bring myself, okay, you're nervous over there. I'm going to bring myself to the same anxiety level that they are, but then I'm going to relax them after a little while. And what I mean by that is this right here. When elk are nervous, and a lot of times I like to think probably because of me, I'm moving in on them, and they're getting a little nervous. This is what it sounds like. It's more of a short, choppy chirp. Do the same thing on an external. Another one. Elk are nervous when you hear that sound. When they do that, you want to do it. Try to mimic it. But then after a while, what you want to do, when elk make this sound, everything's fine within their herd structure. Everything's good in their environment. When they're more drawn out, elk are relaxed. When you hear that off in a distance and they're doing that, the elk herd is relaxed. But those short, choppy calls, just understand that it's more of an anxiety type call. One more call I do just want to throw in here real quick. If you've never heard it before, everybody's heard a whitetail snort. Everybody in Canada, or you're not breathing. So that shoo, I can't do it, but it makes that type of a sound. This is a whitetail snort in the elk world. It's a bark. It's their warning call.
That was pretty
good. And I'll tell you, at times they've done it. I do it. And a lot of times, because that animal, it knows where the danger is, I've found over the years, sometimes the elk herd comes to the animal that's barking because they know where the danger is. And whatever way that animal's going to run, that's where they're going to run to. I've had actually elk come to me after doing that over the years. I've had experiences with that. It's definitely a call you do not want to throw into your calling routine, trying to call an elk to you. I only do that if they do it, and it seems to relax them. One time in Utah a couple years back, I remember it was a 360 bull I was working on. Got the herd riled up. It's a little short, choppy. One cow started barking. Started barking. But then after a little bit, I added this long drawn out. Everything's fine. And then I still mixed it up with the short choppies. But it seemed to really start to relax the elk herd. My buddy had that 360 bull in a scope for about 20 minutes. Passed it up. He wanted something bigger. It was a trophy unit. And it just afforded him that opportunity. But it was it's fun to have that experience. I have hundreds of experiences like that over the years. It's very effective. Hope that answered the question.
Yeah, absolutely, Dieter. Question for everybody maybe on the panel. When it comes to overcalling, maybe for cows, can you overcall? And I know you just talked about that warning call, but can you, too many, too loud? Can you overcall when it comes to calling? Because I was told you can overcall or be too dominant as a bull call, a bull bugle, but can you overcall as a cow or imitating a cow?
Well, my experience with that, Darren, is the reason you're right in what you're saying there. And the reason is because if you can break it down like this, a bull call is kind of dominance, it's fighting, whereas the cows are very social. There's way more in a group of them, and they're very vocal. Cows are very, very vocal. So the reason I think that you can't overcall with the cow, but you can with the bull, because the bull, if you call with the bull and a bull has cows, then the way I explain it is they'd rather be lovers than fighters. They do fight all the time, and there's no doubt about it. But I would say the majority want to be lovers, not fighters. So if you overcall, you might push that bull away from you. He might try to gather his cows and move away, because that's generally what they do. But with the cow, because a cow sounds to a bull is relaxing, it's love, it's the sound of love. So you can't, in my opinion, you can't overcall with the cow. But if you are going to call lots, you should do like what Dieter said earlier, is mix it up. Like the reason the reed is so good for cow calls, because it frees up your hands for your binoculars, if you're a bow hunter or a rifle hunter. So you can be making those sounds with your hands free. But I mean, I have a hoochie mama around my neck. I have that soft bite that I showed earlier. I've got a couple of them like this. I have probably 5 different cow calls that all make different sounds, and they're applicable. But at the end of the day, my opinion is you can overcall with the bull, because you're showing dominance to them. Now, sometimes, I mean, of all the elk in the 30 years that I've guided, I can count on my hands how many times I've had bulls come screaming to the bull call. Now, it happens all the time. I call that TV elk. Those are the ones that you see in the TV. in the shows and stuff like that. They come flying out looking to fight that bull. But in reality, is you get more results with love, which is the cow call. So yes, you can overcall with the bull call, and I don't think you can with the cow call. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and for me, that would have been pretty much the time that I kind of started putting away the bugle and just only really use it as a locate. We have a lot of elk on agricultural land, so there's always, you can't hunt on this land, but you can on this land. And the herd that we've been hunting for a while is that there's no hunting across the river, and that's where they hang out. And they know that. And so not only do you have to try to coax them across a moving body of water, they know that if they stay over there, then they're fine. And so we called in this bull here with a bugle, and that was 10 years ago now. And there was a lot less pressure on that land, but now there's a lot more pressure in and around that area where, and that was a great point that Dieter brought up, is I hadn't really learned cow calling that much. And we were getting a lot of, now that I know, relaxed sounds from the herd across the river. And all we thought we had to do was chirp. Wow. Herd bull just rounded everybody up, and up the hill they went, and that was it for the day. And so definitely learning the different types of calls. But when we started elongating our calls, we started associating that with more success, because that's when we were able to actually pull bulls, satellite bulls off that herd, cross the river where we could actually harvest them. So I've put away the bugle for the majority of it, because when we were screaming at the bulls, they knew that they were safe over there, so they would just round up their cows and away they went. They're like, yeah, if you want to come fight me, come across the river. And so we never crossed the river, so they knew that they were fine. So I think you can overcall with the bulls.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on that, Dick?
One thing I would interject there is I'm a real perfectionist with having that first sound that comes out of your mouth. Like, practice till you're blue in the face. So you can hit that perfect little note. I mean, we all mess up calls. I don't care who you are. We mess calls up out in the field all the time. I know I do. If you make a bad call, just go right over top of it with a better mew, I guess, for better words to say. And the elk will just keep on doing what they're doing.
The best thing, see, fellas, when we learned to call, and it's fair to say we all sort of are from the same generation of elk calling. Right now is, if you want to learn to call, now's the best time ever, because you have the internet, you have the YouTube, you can watch videos, and the best way to learn to call, unlike I didn't have this in 1990, is you can go to YouTube and pull up cow sounds, and you could play it and listen to it and mimic those, where we didn't have that. So, I mean, I tell everybody all the time, the internet, for when it comes to calling, goose or whatever, you just have to Google it or go to YouTube, and you got that advantage. So.
Yeah.
I might as well interject there, Muck, with a little plug here that we were talking about before the show, where late next week, we are going to get Dieter and Travis back on for a YouTube live elk calling seminar. We'll post the date and time, but it'll be late next week, like the 21st, 22nd. And we're going to go into a lot more technical details. So check their social media pages. I'll post it up on mine at Pursue the Hunt, and I'm sure Muck will post it up on his. And then we'll go into a lot more technical detail about that. So just stay tuned for that as well.
Muck, are we ready to kind of switch gears and do some talk about bugling, or are we still kind of doing the chirps? And
you know what? I guess we kind of got off track a bit there. Dieter, I want this directed to you. Why is it call companies, and I mean, I guess I should be to Travis, but I know you know this. Why is there a soft bite? Why is there a mouth read? Why is there a push one like that? Why do they have those?
Well, the push thing, obviously, because of ease of use. But I want you to really think about what you just did there. Hit it again, Muck. That's an anxiety call again, right? Sounds like that's a lost calf sound. That calf is looking for mom. When I hear that call, that's what I hear in the woods when calves are looking for mom. So kind of understand cow talk and really what you're understanding when you're hearing these different sounds. But that's an important call because a lot of calves are looking for mom. So it's a natural sound out there that you're making, and you're making herd sounds. The reason they make different calls is because, like what we talked about earlier, what I talked about and you talked about, Muck, was this call sounds different than this call, and this call sounds different than this call. And what we want to do is produce herd sounds. Now I add the smiling into it, the calf sound, and the lips with the O. Now there's 5 different elk sounds right there. Elk are herd animals. During the rut, it sounds like a buffet of girlfriends. Like you said, Muck, I love you, you love me, come ride home with me in my pickup truck. That's what it's all about. We're trying to call that bull to us. But when we talk about the more technical side, when we have this other seminar on YouTube that Michael's preparing for us or coordinating, we're going to talk about different hunting techniques, how to read a bull. Because you can be the best caller in the world, but if you're not reading that bull and reading what those elk are doing, it's a big learning curve we can help you with here during this seminar. It took me a lot of years to learn some of the techniques that we're going to share that we don't have enough time in this little interview right here. But there's a lot of years of experience that I can help share with you that'll really help close that learning curve to try to help you learn how to call some elk. And I know other people have their own techniques. Listen, Cameron Haynes doesn't ever call. I know other people, Randy Ulmer killed some monster bulls down in Arizona and throughout the United States. Never use a call. All they do is elk are giving away their position. They cougar in and they kill those elk, or they get ahead of them, find out which direction, they get around them, get ahead of them, and kill them. There's nothing wrong with that technique. The techniques that Blair brings to this, and Muck and Travis and Michael and all of us, everybody has their own little technique. So what you're going to learn is a variety of techniques that you can use, this collage of information, put it together for yourself, and be successful in the field. That's all we're doing is we want you guys to be successful in the field. That's why we're spending the time to do this. I know I digressed there a little bit. I do want to digress just one more point here. And we'll talk about this with the hunting techniques. But Michael, you talked about those elk calling them across that water, which is a big obstacle, right? Decoys are very effective. If an elk can see a decoy in a situation, they can be very effective in calling elk to you. Because a lot of times they hang up because they don't see what they're hearing. That's one of the big reasons they hang up on you. But if they can see that decoy sometimes and get away using it, it's extremely effective.
Is there some questions there, Darren, in the chat?
Well, yeah, Brock's got one talking about chuckling on a bugle. It's a struggle. Any tips on how to help with that? Also, producing barks. And when should they be used?
Can I jump in here, Travis? Do you mind?
No, give her. Yeah.
Well, a bark is just like a cow call. It goes from a high pitch, starts at a high note, but as soon as you get the high note, what you want to do is drop your tongue off and go, ooh. Ooh. That's how to practice it, just like that. But then you're going to start to coordinate dropping your tongue off and going, ooh, like somebody just socked you in the gut at the same time. Really go, ooh. I mean, before you put a diaphragm in your mouth, go, ooh, because that's the sound you really want to put in it. I know people, they put the diaphragm in their mouth, they go, well, you just went ooh when you didn't have it there. Get used to doing that. Put that diaphragm in your mouth, coordinate it together. And the reason I want to bring this up, because if you can bark like that, cow call, you can chuckle. So what it is it's a fast, you're going to cow call, hard to soft. Then what you're going to do is you're going to start shortening it up. Start dropping your tongue off. And just like when we barked, when we went, ooh, this is what we're going to start doing now. This is how to practice it. One at a time, and then you can start building up the coordination. One more thing I just want to bring up with chuckles is this. You don't have to do this, what I'm going to tell you next, but if you want to be the best of the best, and that's why we're here, we're just going to share with you. You don't have to do this, but I just want to share with you, when an elk bugles, or when they chuckle, they blow air out. Okay? But they also suck air back in. Like a bellow on a fire. You blow it out, and you breathe it, suck it, open it back up, you hear like it's breathing back in. So if you want to get good at this, practice it like this, one at a time. At this point, you'll start hyperventilating, just so you're aware of that. Do not practice this in the car, or Muck's going to pull you over for drunk driving while you guys. So, but this is what you want to do, though. I'm gonna show you something here. When I start sucking in, you can also make sound with your voice a little bit. You can start going up and down the pitch pile here. See, I'm going almost like a monkey. You don't have to do this, but if you want to be the best you can possibly be in your elk calling, these are some techniques that I'm just throwing in there that you can do. And I know I went through this fairly fast, but let me just make it so you can hear how it sounds. One more thing I want to add. In the middle, I like to draw out my chuckles a little bit. I like to go short and choppy in the beginning, draw them out a little bit in the middle, and then come back and go short and choppy at the end. It sounds a lot more realistic than going. Even elk do that, but this is what I like to do even in the woods. Kind of get an idea of what I'm doing there? Travis, jump in there and show some of your techniques, because everybody's different.
Yeah, 100% exactly what you just said there. The breathing in sound is, to me, the most important. When you're actually out elk hunting, and you guys will see this through the whole season here, you can pick out a hunter's bugle, because I hunt really pressured areas, just like you guys do all over. You listen to their chuckle, and you know right away. They can be a really good bugler, but their chuckle gives it away instantly. And most guys are just doing that. They're forgetting. You can go loud, you can go soft. Anything you want to do there. But you hear that, the sucking in sound. And to me, that's the most important. Because anybody can get the sound out, but the elk are really listening for the whole finished package, and that sucking the air in is finishing the package off, basically. But yeah.
So when talking the language, what does a chuckle mean? Like, what does that mean to a novice hunter? Like, okay, you're chuckling. How it was explained to me was you've got that bull interested in what you're doing as a cow, and they're coming in to check things out that they're interested in you. Am I right?
Yeah, it's basically an invitation. So you can be talking to the cows, but you can also be talking to the other bulls. So you chuckle to them. It's a nice herd talk kind of mentality. So chuckling will bring in the cows, but it'll also bring in the bulls. So depending on the scenario that you're actually thrown at, it's a great little, a lot of times in the morning, because I hunt really popular areas here, I won't throw out a location bugle. I'll literally get in there with a little chuckle, and anything that's like fishing, fish the water that's right out in front of you first, and then start reaching out. But I'm very careful when I reach out, because there might be hunters that are 400 or 500 yards away.
Right.
I don't want to give away everything to them right away that, hey man, there's an elk over there, right? Because they're going to come barging in, and if you have an elk that's right there 100 yards down in front of you, that could spoil it for you for sure. So, but yeah,
So
that's
what I found with chuckling a lot of times is sometimes bulls don't bugle. That's all they do is chuckle. They just every personality is different out of a bull, and you just got to kind of read what they're doing and just kind of try to mimic what they're doing as much as you can. That's what I do in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever watched a bull and they do chuckle? Like, when they get so revved up and excited and they just chuckle like that, that's what they're urinating on their mane and underneath on their belly. They get so worked up and fired up, like you said, they just chuckle.
Yep. And what that urine is it's a part of this breeding ritual. So that the urine it's a deterrent to other bulls, and it's an attractant to the cows. I mean, they're giving off pheromones, right? So one thing I just want to bring up is I have gutted out 400 bulls, and I have gutted out little raghorns or spikes. And if I can personally smell a difference in the rankness of the urine, a bull elk can. And this is one of the reasons right here why when you're hunting elk, they circle downwind of you. They're not circling downwind. They're circling downwind because they want to smell you first before they get in on something they don't want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. So when they circle downwind of you, if you smell like a big old bull, they might think twice about coming in on you and getting in on that elk. So when we talk about hunting techniques during this seminar, we'll talk about how to set up for bulls like that and how to intercept them as far as being successful. But yeah, they urinate on themselves. It's an attractant to the cows, and it's a deterrent to other bulls. And they stink, let me tell you. A lot of times you smell them. If you got the wind in your face, you smell them way before you see them.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Travis.
I was just going to say, it's an awesome stink.
Smell them long before you see them.
Yeah.
In 2009, I was lucky enough when I called my bull out, and the final destination, he came out to the clearing. He was chuckling, and the advice I had gotten from a fellow that I know, he's like, if you can get him to chuckle, he goes, you've got him hooked on what you're trying to do. And he came in screaming down this pathway. And like you said, Blair, he was chuckling, his belly was moving, he was peeing all over the place. And it was a very exciting feeling. And it happened, like Michael said, it happened pretty quick. And if I had a camera and was actually filming it, you wouldn't even have to edit it the way it happened. It happened pretty quick, and it was very exhilarating. And when he came in, he was chuckling and turned broadside to me. I was able to get him, but yeah, it was pretty cool.
So for everybody that's listening and watching, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat so we can ask these guys while we have them. If you have any questions, so for you guys, this is a question I get all the time, and I'm assuming you guys do too. And I want you to address it in your way. And the question is, what I get is they'll go, Buck, I got an elk or a bull that was 100 yards away. He was bugling, but I couldn't bring him in. What do you suggest to do that in? And I hear that so often that they don't know how to sort of finish the job per se. Now, some elk you just don't get to see, but as how do you deal with that gap to get them to come in?
I've got a couple techniques that I've used over the years. One is I've noticed, and this is just a little call you can do with the diaphragm only that I've noticed. When a bull's hanging up on me a little bit, and I've noticed the only reason I know this is because from hunting them over the years, the closer I got to them, they started doing this. And what it tells me, it's almost like a dog with his tail between his legs. So I do it. So if a bull's hanging up on me a little bit, what I'll do instead of doing those big fancy bugles and all of that stuff, just a little moan like this. Just a little. Just a little moan. No bugles, no chuckles, just a, and it sounds a lot better if you have a tube. And I always call away from them. I always cow call toward them. I always bugle behind me. Make it sound like, I always want that bull to leave and have the illusion there's always a cow in front of, between us. Give them the incentive to try to come in to get that cow. And of course, we're going to be waiting for them. That's one technique. The other technique is this. So if you're hunting with a partner, this is really effective. So, and it's the same way with turkeys too, this is effective. So let's say Muck, Travis, Michael, Darren, Blair, one of us are hunting together. And you guys are sitting out front. If that bull's hanging up on us, what I'm going to do, you stay right where you're at. Try not to make a peep, because I'm going to start running back. I'm going to start moving back 100 yards, 150 yards. Let him think I'm moving away from him. But if there's a little cow call every once in a while, I just contradicted myself. Who's ever sitting up there, cow call. Let him think this bull's moving away, but there's a cow in between, so he can come in. But you got to be ready. He's still going to come in downwind because he doesn't know if you have a silent bull. So make that cow call. Try to get the wind in your face as much as possible. Or what I like to try to do is get it off to one side. And then what I do is I go down at a 45-degree angle to try to intercept him. So I'll make that cow call. Then I'll move up 25, 30 yards and just sit there for a few minutes. Nothing happens. I keep leapfrogging myself, if you can kind of understand that. Hopefully I just described that correctly. But if you got a caller working with you, move back. Let the bull feel comfortable enough to start coming back in.
One thing that the way I address that question is I always ask them, when they ask me that question, I turn it on them and ask them the question. I'll say, well, what did you do that didn't finish the deal? And I'd say 9 out of 10 times they say nothing. I stood there or I sat there and waited for them. And I say, elk, you'll know when an elk is coming to you, or if he's calling to you. You'll know, like I call it flipping the switch. You'll know when a bull is committed to you. It's just the way they bugle. But what I say to him is, why did you stop at 100 yards? Why didn't you not continue on and try to work in on them? Because I'm a big believer in keep constant pressure on the bulls and with your cow call. So I always say, why did you stop at 100 yards? Thinking that you're going to bring them that way. And I always simplify it this way. He's probably got 10 cows, and one of them might be an estrus, and you're trying to simulate that you're a cow, trying to draw him away. So always remember, he wants to be where he feels comfortable. He doesn't know you're there. So it's not a comfortable thing, even though you're trying to make sounds that are comfortable to them. So I say, keep pressuring them as much as you can. So that 100 yards, turn it to 50 yards is what I always say. So I am always like, put a little pressure on him, put him a little pressure on him. Because at the end of the day, if he's 100 yards and you don't see him and he gets away, you still lost him. So why not go 50 yards? And yes, he could see you, he could spook. That's just elk hunting. So I'm always like putting it on them. Don't stop moving. Don't be static. There's a time when you'll tell by their bugle when you can stand in one spot or hide or something like that. I like your method with somebody with you, Dieter, working together. But I always say, go after those elk. Go after them.
Yeah, I agree totally, because we're kind of doing the reversal in the elk woods when we're going out there calling. If an elk, whether it be a cow, a calf, a bull, if they answer you, they're telling you to come to them. And that's just how it works in their world. They always want you to go to them, no matter what. So give them what they want. Go to them. 9 times out of 10, you're on the game trail. Just slip in there, throw in your cow calls along the way if you want. I'm very careful with when I'm moving in on a bull like that. If I throw a couple cow calls, if he does have those 8 or 10 cows that Muck was talking about, if those girls don't want you in their little clique, they're going to go away. And that's how you get a running bull. Basically, he'll, like Dieter said earlier, it's a dog with his tail between his legs. Those cows move away, and that bull is just a puppy dog following along. So wherever those girls are going, that's where the bull's going to go. And that's where you'll end up moving up 200 yards, and you'll hear him bugle again. He's at 300 yards, so you'll move another 100. Okay, we're closer now. And then he bugles at 400 yards. You're like, oh man, what are we doing wrong here? He just keeps going. They move so fast. They're moving away from you the whole time. So I do kind of the exact same thing that Dieter does as well. But a lot of times I'll grab a stick when I'm moving back. I'll kind of go silent with my calling. I'll have the cow caller do a couple nice little soft mews when he's up front. And then I'll start dropping back. And I'll start, basically grab a stick, or with my bugle tube, I'll swish the grass back and forth, break sticks as you're moving back, and you can draw them in that way. There's lots of different sounds besides just going with the bugle and chuckles and cow calls all the time. Stomp your feet on the ground, make some noise, kick some rocks. Don't be scared to sound like an elk that's actually retreating, kind of moving away. That's going to draw that bull in, and he's going to come walking right into your shooter.
We've got some questions.
Talking about raking really quick, I'll just bring up a scenario I had. I've had several over the years, but just a scenario that works for me is sometimes this works for a bull hanging up on you. Just get in as tight as you can. Don't make any bugle sounds at all, and just start raking. Start raking a tree, start raking some branches. And I've noticed that the bulls, when they're coming in, the bulls that we've killed this way, or bulls that we've had encounters with, they just want, I've seen them come in, and bulls we've even passed up, I've seen them come in, all they want is that visual confirmation where that other bull is, kind of get a glimpse of his horns, and then he just kind of moves off. I've noticed bulls, they'll see me just raking the tree. They can't make me out because I'm behind the tree, but I'm just raking. And the raking's very effective as far as calling a bull to you. Hey, I saw another question there about calling from tree stands. Yep. If you're calling from a tree stand, I recommend cow calling only, not bugle. And just do it seriously, about every 10 minutes, and just shut up and let them hunt for you. As these bulls are coming in, if they're hanging up on you, sometimes it's because you are overcalling and they're not seeing that visual confirmation, or just nervous. Sometimes when they're starting to come in, there's a time to start shutting up and letting them start hunting for you. And that's the biggest thing that I have found, is just having the control in your own mind. It's fun to have that interaction, get them going. But then when they start shutting up a little bit, start shutting up yourself, so let them start coming in, cougaring in on you so you can kill them.
Dieter, I'll just back you there. From a tree stand too, I do very little calling too. But what I will say, if you are going to hunt from a blind, try to pick a trail, or like a trail between feeding and a bedding source, as well as a trail to water, because then then you've got other things working for you other than your calling.
Right.
There's a couple questions here. We got a question that says, is it worth trying to call in mid-October, or is it too late in the season for that?
Nope. And let me jump in there, and I apologize, you guys, being a mic hog here, but I've had a lot of experience. So a lot of the cows are not bred in September. When a cow is not bred in September, she will come into estrus just like a whitetail. They'll come into estrus 30 days later. I've called in bulls as late as October 29th. One time I called in 2 bulls. I shot one on video for the TV show. No, elk are the most vocal out of all the deer species. They talk all year round. They don't just talk during the rut. And I want to say something else. Bulls also cow call. They don't just bugle throughout the year. They also make cow type sounds. But yeah, I will bugle if I'm going to bugle for elk, or try to locate that way. I'll bugle into October for sure. No question about it. But they cow call all year round.
Yeah.
Any other comments about that one?
Yeah, I would say I agree wholeheartedly. Keep calling. You will find it harder to have them come into a bugle. Like they will call, but I found you're getting into a post rut, and I find that they're pretty spent by that time.
But those cows do come into a second estrus late October. The ones that that weren't bred, especially in lower bull to cow ratio areas, the cows that were not bred will come into heat 30 days later.
I know in Saskatchewan, I find from September 27th to October 4th, second cycle, for them earlier cows, and those bulls are crazy vocal. My best calling and the easiest to call them big bulls in has always been from September 27th to October 4th. In Saskatchewan, anyways.
Okay, we have another question here from Landon. Is ranking a tactic when you're using your calling set, or to finish a pulling and a bull in? So is there a ranking in your tactic?
You just got to read the bull.
Yeah, I use raking all the time myself. Like a lot of times I hunt with me and my wife, and on her pack is a little 2 or 3 point antler that she carries, and she's the raker all the time. So whatever calling I'm doing, she'll stand up there. And when you get a bull coming in, I don't care if you grab a stick or if you actually have a little antler that you carry. You're not going to carry a 6 point antler with you, obviously, but a little 2 or 3 point that you come across, keep it, strap it to your backpack, and just literally hold it up in the air. And those elk are going to see it, and they're going to be drawn to it. Just like what they were saying earlier, you know, they see an antler, they're going to come walking over to it. And there's nothing more realistic than grabbing that antler and going up and down on the tree with it. It's got that actual antler sound on the proper tree. The elk know it. We know it. It sounds totally different than taking your bugle tube and doing it, or taking a stick and doing it. Antlers just have that sound. And if you're trying to fool an animal, you're trying to be as realistic as possible. So, yeah, and as much as it's a pain to carry that thing around with you, it has way more benefits than not taking it with you.
I know that. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I was just gonna say I really differ there. I'm very, very much against raking. I just found with my experience that all that hard work that you might have put in working that bull to especially if you weren't bugling to him, and then all of a sudden you start raking. Now what does that bull think that is happening? He's thinking there's another bull there and he's going to fight. And I just have a firm believer that they would rather mate or be around a cow than another bull. And I mean, hence why all these satellite bulls are always trying to work a herd. And so I stay away from that. I have seen it work and I know it does, but I'm cautious because I think you're putting that bull on alert now that there's another bull there. So I personally wouldn't, especially if I'm in close, I would never try to pull a bull in closer with raking. I know it does work. I would rather try to coerce him with the cow talk.
Yeah, it's been effective for me, especially if a bull's hanging up. You have nothing to lose.
Right.
I'll go to that, and it's been very effective for me. I can't say very. It's been effective. It's hit or miss. One more point I wanted to bring up. Travis brought up a really good point earlier, and that's making elk sounds. And it's not just bugling, it's not just raking, but it's also tapping your toe, making it sound like elk moving around. Elk they're big animals, and they make a lot of noise. And when you're moving in on them, you don't have to tiptoe moving in on them a lot of times. You don't want to break every darn stick going in on them when you're trying to cougar in on them, but they do make noise, and you're going to make noise. When you're setting up, I thump my feet on the grill. I'll take my toe and just make it sound like I'm elk moving around, because it sounds a lot more natural than just sitting there making type sounds. Make it sound like you're elk moving around. Yeah, reach up and snap a little twig. It's okay. Or take a rock and just kind of throw a thump over, behind your shoulder about, 10 yards or so. Make it sound like you're elk moving around. It's really important to I was doing a segment one time. I was up in Alberta, and I remember I had a bull hanging up on us. And an outfitter guy had taught me this in New Mexico one time. Remember I said elk or elk? I don't care what part of the world you're in, elk or elk. So I was explaining to the cameraman about, how effective it is. If he's hanging up, just make it sound like everything is relaxed. Reach down and start pulling up grass with your hand. So I was down on my hands and knees. This bull was hanging up on us. It wasn't doing a little segment. I turn around and there's the bull standing there looking at us 10 yards away. We did not get that bull, but it was a very effective technique. I was just right in the middle of showing something that had worked that was shown to me, to everybody on the camera, the audience, and it worked right in that very moment. So anyway.
Just with raking, for those that have used it or had success with it, you know, when you see guys that are hunting moose, they have a paddle or a boat, or deer hunters have deer antlers. Is it effective to have a elk antler, or does any antler work? Or
well, like Travis just said, I like to have an elk antler just because if you're going to have an antler, try to have the real thing. Just don't, you know, get a 350 bull antler strapped to your back. Try to get something small that's going to be manageable. And then, of course, you want to make sure that nobody has a rifle tag in that area where, you know, they might shoot you walking through the woods with an antler. So
right.
Just be aware of the areas that you're at when you're doing that.
There's another question here from Brock. Brock says, do you find it more lucky to try to sound like an insubordinate bull or a dominant bull, or does it depend on the situation?
For me, yeah, it depends on the bull. I have the best success imitating the bull that's bugling. If I hear what he's doing and I think he might be younger or older, it doesn't matter. I try to mock him. I try to ease his mind by not overpowering him, because you can especially like I've heard Travis and Dieter call, like they can sound like a massive herd bull, and if you do that necessarily to a wild bull, you could turn him, especially if he's not a big herd bull. If you might be dealing with a 6x5 or a younger 6-point or something like that, which we very could be running into. So I just try to determine what he is and then go off of him.
I've called big herd bulls before, and no matter what kind of sound you throw at them, it doesn't matter. There's no way a human being can mimic the sheer volume of a bull elk. And when you got a 375 to a 400 bull, and you guys have them up in your country, they're not afraid of some of the sounds you throw at them. A big bull, I'm talking. A little bull, yeah, they're going to put their tail between their legs and go running. Sorry, Travis.
Yeah, no. The other thing I've noticed, and I tell this to people at seminars all the time, bugle like you're going to bugle. And we've all been fooled by a little 3 or 4 point bull just coming in, just screaming. But I've also had the opposite. I've had big 6 and 7 points come in, and they're just doing a little squeal. You think, oh, this is just a little dink guy coming in, you know, and you don't even knock an arrow. You're not even ready. And all of a sudden this giant 6x6 steps out, and you're like going, holy man, what just happened, right? So personally, I like to bugle, and I bugle. It's not that I'm screaming my head off. We all have our favorite little sound or bugle that we do. That's kind of one of the favorite bugles I do. It's not long. It's not a locating bugle. It's not an advertising bugle. It's just a nice little, hey guys, here I am. This is who I am kind of bugle. And I'm just a firm believer that, like Dieter said, they're a 6, 7, 800-pound animal in some instances. We're 200-pound guys out there in the bush. Our lungs are so small compared to what an elk is. There's no way we can even match what a real actually do. Right?
See, for me, it really doesn't matter what your bugle sounds like, because for me, I use strictly a bugle as a locator call. As soon as I get a bull reply to me, I rarely bugle to him unless that's my last resort. So if I'm walking along and I usually, my routine is I walk for about 3 minutes, I stop, I bugle. As soon as I get a reply, I don't bugle to that bull again unless that's the last resort. So I'm not overpowering him, because I'm just placing him where he's at, and then I'm going to get him with the cow call. That's how I do it.
Yeah.
And all these techniques are different, you know, and I'll share with you my technique. It's the peak of the rut right now. Let's pretend 1 month from now, peak of the rut. I always 100% of the time always throw a series of cow calls out there. Always. Because if a bull answers that cow call, I'm telling him, hey, I love you. He's bugling back saying, I love you back. And like I said, saying, well, let's go home in my truck together, you know. But if he's answering that cow call, where I'm going with it is he's already committed to you that he loves you. But the second you bugle at that moment, now you're saying, hey, I love you, but I got this boyfriend sitting right here that you got to
Exactly.
fight.
Exactly.
You know, so I hear what you're saying, Muck, and I always cow call. Now, if I don't get a bugle off of a series of cow calls, and seriously, I will wait. Sometimes I'll do cow calls, series of cow call, not for 10, 15 minutes straight, but I will do it over a period of time for 10 or 15 minutes to try to get a bull cranked up. Usually, for me, it's always those open-reeded cow calls that get them cranked up for me, even though I think I'm a pretty good cow caller with a diaphragm. It's usually the open reeds that get it going for me. But again, if I don't get a response from the cow calls, then I'll definitely commit to the bugle to try to get something to answer a bugle. And then, like Muck said, cougar in and then try to finish the job with a cow call.
So, Dieter, the reason that I do it that way is I'm by no means the biggest turkey hunter in the world, but elk hunting and turkey hunting are so similar with the way you do things. I've kind of learned that elk was a lot like turkey hunting in the sense that I'm shocking that turkey, right? I'm trying to locate them, and the bulls were the same way. So the reason I use the bull call is because I'd be walking along, I'd bugle, I'd shock that bull, because right away now he's thinking, oh, there's another bull here, and almost always they reply back. Either it doesn't matter if he's interested or not, they almost always reply because I shocked him. And that's why you're absolutely right. Like if you have a good area that you can start off with cow calls, by all means, that's probably the best. But I just do it because from turkey hunting, I found that if I'm going to try to locate that turkey, I'm going to shock them. I'm doing an owl hoot or whatever, and they give away their location, and then I go after it. So the same thing goes for elk. That's how I refer to it. Is I use a bull call strictly as a shock call.
So here's a question. I've got a question. When you guys get into elk areas, do you not glass for a bit first to see if you can locate, like if you're returning to an area that you've had elk in before, do you glass hot spots to see if you can spot them and then go and try to set up on them and then start calling, or do you start calling as soon as you enter into an elk area?
So for me, it depends on, because I've hunted around the United States and Canada. For me, it's like this. Around here in northern Idaho, you can't glass. It's just too brushy. It's almost like western British Columbia. It's just thick, real thick with brush. And it's hard. There's not a whole lot of openings you can get into to glass. You get down to more southern arid areas, or more open areas, like certain places in Alberta, you can do this, where it's more arid in certain regions. Glassing is effective. And of course, you want to glass, you can try to find the bull that you're looking for prior to hiking up a mountain to go after them. You can kind of size up your bulls, and we've done that a lot. But it really, Michael, it depends on the area. Yeah, glassing's effective if you can glass them, but if you're in areas like where I'm at right here, where your typical shot is within 20 yards of a bull because it's just so thick, it's just not effective glassing here like in open area.
And I would say it really determines what part of where you are in the hunting season. Are you in the pre-rut, or are you in post-rut? Because in the full rut, they're giving themselves away because they're talking. In the early season, they might bugle for that first 15 minutes and then they're quiet. So then you have to look for them, or they're already gone. And then same thing in what I would call the late season is the same thing. So I would say glassing would be effective in the early and later season, because that you don't want to go in there and spook them out of there. But in the full rut, let's face it, they're giving themselves away by talking.
Yep.
Yeah, and where I hunt here in Alberta, it's so thick, just like you're saying. But the one spot I do use binoculars is when I do have an elk coming in and he's close, 80, 100 yards, 150 yards out. I'm always looking through the bush, looking through those limbs, trying to spot the elk where he is. And I mean, my binoculars aren't big. They're 8x40 or whatever they are. And they're just small. I don't even know they're there. The only other time I use them is if I'm on a ridge overlooking like a big cut block area or something, then we can actually use those to their potential. But for the most part, my bugle is, I would rather leave all my clothes and my pack and my boa in the truck and just go with my bugle tube.
Yeah, me
Honest
too.
to God, like I love bugling, and that's how I find pretty much all our elk, and they're just, we bugle and bugle and bugle, and that's the most important piece of the equipment for me by far. But as far as the glasses, I could leave them in my truck for all it really mattered, and I would still be as successful.
We've got a few more questions here. Kathy writes, "Do you ever cover your scent, or you just go out?"
I just use, for me, I don't generally use cover scent. I use like what Travis sells. I use one of these, and I just get the wind in my favor.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. You had it already, and there it's called thermals, because that's all you're doing. You're just testing the wind. It's just a light little powder, basically just give her a little puff.
Very important tool right there. Yep.
Yeah, that's all you need, basically.
Yeah, and I used to work with hunter specialties. We sold scent away, and of course on the videos you got to make it look like, your scent control is why we killed the animal. I'm being honest with you. Get the wind in your face. You've got to. I do want to say this about urines though, because Wayne showed me a video. Wayne Carlton, who developed the first elk diaphragm ever. He invented it for elk. But I do want to share with you this. I saw him take cow and estrus urine one time, and the wind was really switching. The bull came in, and it kind of blew out. It took off. He took this, it was in a mister spray, so he sprayed it. You could see it go into the air, and it was blowing toward that bull. And that bull lifted its nose up like this, and you could just see him catching the thermals. He smelled that, and he came in. So my philosophy on scents, if you can fool their nose for 5 seconds, it might allow you a shot of a lifetime, then it was worth it. But in regards to cover scents, I've been hearing some stuff about this nose jammer, it's called nose jammer. I've not used it yet. I'm curious to try to use it myself. But I've heard some curious things about this and how effective it is from some pretty veteran hunters. Like I said, I've not used it, but this, like, best thing in the world, like Travis said, and Muck, get the wind in your face, and Michael said it too, get the wind in your face and hunt them. But what I like to do, like I said, I like to get a crosswind personally, just directly crosswind like this. And if somebody was hunting up in front of me, I like to put them at about a 45-degree angle to me, like Muck or Travis, Michael, Blair, Darren. Put them at a 45-degree angle to me at about probably 50 yards out, because this bull's going to come in and try to smell me. So you can use that wind to your advantage. As he's trying to circle me, these guys are going to intercept him for the shot. And that's how we kill probably 80% of our bulls right there.
Yeah. And I will say, when you're moving in on a bull, it's one thing to check the wind when you're 100 yards out, 150 yards out, give it a puff, But where it's really important is when that bull's moving in on you, or you're moving in on that bull, you're getting close. This thing's in one hand, my bugle tube's in the other, and it reads in your mouth. And I'm constantly just checking them in, just light,
Yeah.
Okay, good, we're good. And if it's not good, move.
Get out of there. Yep.
If they smell you, the game is over. I mean, you can fool their ears and you can fool their eyes. You can't fool their nose, no matter what. It's game over. If they smell you, we stink. I mean, I stink. I know Muck stinks. We stink.
For these guys back east, I do want to say this. I've seen some scent eliminations work, but they're for the guys back in the Midwest that can drive their quads within a couple hundred yards of their tree stand. They climb up in their tree stand, right? But for an elk hunter, we're 5 minutes out of the truck, we're sweating. If you're hunting in a mountainous region, you're sweating.
Yep.
And when you sweat, you start to build bacteria. And when bacteria starts to die, that's when you start to stink. And elk smell, and deer, and I can go on, they smell so many parts per million that they catch one particle of human odor. They don't even second guess themselves. They're gone.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a question from Rick. Rick asked, what techniques do you use for hunting cow? Is it different from bull, or is it the same kind of theory where you're strictly hunting for cow?
Calf call.
Calf cow call, yeah.
If you can calf call, the cow's going to come in. Calves are coming in. What's following the cows? The bulls. So whatever you can do throughout the calf call, just little calf, just
That's a great question, Rick. And the reason I say that is I was actually going to bring this up with you guys is, have you ever tried like a calf bleat or a cow bleat? Because like, you know how you do a mule deer bleat and stuff like that. I find it's really effective for cows. Like if you can do a bleat of some kind, you can draw a whole herd of cows to your point because they think that calf's in distress.
Yeah.
For me, I like to go. You can do with the diaphragm. You can do it. What I like to do is a calf and then a cow. Like that, and just long, drawn-out, relaxed sounds. But you can make it sound like a lost calf, like what Travis was doing, that little short, choppy anxiety. Answer it back with that long tone. I like to throw out those relaxed sounds as much as possible, just because I want the elk to be, that everything's fine over here. You can be with us, kind of a mentality.
Yeah.
Dieter's the Barry White of elk calling. There's another question about dates when it comes to pre-rut. I'm going to turn this one to Blair because Blair did mention something about what dates kind of work and post-rut, pre-rut. It says, what dates do you consider pre-rut and post-rut? And then let's just talk Saskatchewan.
In Saskatchewan, the archery seasons are pretty much aligned with the pre-rut, like August 25th to September 8th, 9th is that pre-rut. A lot of times it's the 9th to the 17th would be your full rut, and then from the 20th on is your post-rut kind of thing in Saskatchewan, I find. Like that point about, I said, the calf call works great in that October antlerless season, I found too. Using that calf call on that October, I think it's October 15th, you can do the antlerless elk in Saskatchewan. That's a good way. But like I said, that's usually our dates in Saskatchewan, and that is the archery is aligned with the pre, and then the rifle's right in that main rut, and then towards the end of September, that post rut after the 20th or so. The 11th to 17th, I find in Saskatchewan seems to be the peak.
My favorite day to be out there bugling too is September 11th. I don't know why. There's a light switch, bam, it just turns on, and the elk are bugling.
In BC, I had the same thing. September 18th was the best day for calling elk in BC. Was always September 18th. They were just screaming by then.
Yeah.
Okay, we covered a lot. So if you've ever watched my program, what we do, guys, is we go one by one. We give you a couple minutes to ask anybody on the panel. We do have quite a few people logged on here tonight, so I do ask you, if you're going to ask a question, please direct it to somebody, and then we'll move on as opposed to the whole group because it'll take forever. So as always, I will start at the top here. So Brock, I'm going to bring you in, bring you on camera, and then if you got a question. If not, we can move on. All right, Brock, you're on there, buddy.
Hey, sorry, buddy. I was gonna just ask one question. What's everybody's biggest elk that they killed? Quickly, don't the big story or anything, but let's just hear some numbers on what everybody's killed. Me personally, it's about 315 with the bow, and I've got some big sheds, but I haven't killed too many big ones.
So I don't know if you guys heard that, but he asked us to say what your biggest elk was. No story, just how big your biggest elk was.
This one for me right here was just over 311.
Dieter?
I've called in a lot of bigger bulls than the ones that than the ones I've actually killed. When you're the caller, and Travis could probably attest to this, when you're the caller, you're calling in bulls for other people. But my biggest bull is about just a little under 360. Biggest bull I've ever called into a kill is at 403.
Wow.
Yeah, that's giant. Yeah. Biggest bull I ever called in. I never got a tape on him because he got taken by a grizzly bear, believe it or not. And he was with three.
That story.
Yeah, he was with 3 other bulls when he came, and I'm pretty sure he was the biggest one. And I have no idea what he scored, but never even got to lay hands on him. So ripped up the tag that season, and yeah, a lot of tears were flowing. I can tell you that.
My first and only elk I got is 350 and 7/8.
Yeah, I've got one in the 350s, 340s, and 330s. But I've called in a lot bigger bulls for guys too.
That's the fun part.
So for me, I've kept track. I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd that way. I've guided for over 200 6-point bulls, but I've killed this many elk. I've never killed an elk for myself ever.
I still can't believe that.
So I've yet to actually but the biggest bull I ever did guide though was in Arizona, a 400 pointer in the White Apache Indian Reservation. I was the caller on that one.
That's where I got my place, Muck. Right, that's where I got my place, right by the White Apache Indian Reservation down there.
Okay, thanks, Brock. I'm gonna take you off there. Okay, so next one up is, I don't have any idea who this is. It just says iPhone, but whoever you are, you're up next. See if they jump on here.
I was just wondering whether you, Muck, this is for you. For greenhorn elk hunters, what would you say are the 3 best tips that you could give them to get set up for the season? Actually, the late season. I'm sorry, it's not archery, but
the three best tips. So I would say for sure, get yourself wind indicator, good binoculars, and a series of cow calls. So either if you have these soft bites or if you can use a reed. When I guide, I call it my jewelry. I have like 5 different cow calls around my neck, as well as my binoculars, and as well as my mouth reed. So I'm running one of those, and I'm running like one of these, and I've got the soft bites that I had in my hand. So, but you have to have a wind indicator. You really do, because when you think you have the wind, that's when it's going to bite you in the butt. And I always say good binoculars, because you want to see them before they see you.
thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the question. Okay, Jay, you're up next. If I can get it.
I don't really have much questions here because it's been some pretty good information. Just want to say thanks that you guys put this on, and a lot of really good info from you guys. That's for sure.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay.
Unless Blair wants to share where his stand is, I'll take that info.
GPS coordinates, eh?
Yeah. Land location.
Thanks for that. Okay, Kathy, you are up next.
Ask if you can come back to you.
Oh. Kathy, do you got a question for somebody on the panel?
No, I can't think of one right now, but if you could come back to me in a few minutes, I might.
Okay, we'll finish up with you.
Thanks.
All right, Landon, you're up next.
You're welcome. No, what I'm going to really over.
Oh, I got to unmute you there. Okay, you're up there, Landon.
Hey there. Don't really have much for questions. I guess one would be post-shot. Is there a call method that you go for directly after the shot, like an alert or more relaxed? What?
That's a great question, Dieter. I'll get you to do that one because you see that in videos a lot when people when elk are shot.
Hey, Muck, can you just mute Kathy?
Oh, is it Kathy?
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
After the shot, make any elk sound. I don't care what it is, whatever you can do fairly decent, make it. I don't care if it's a bark. Phew!
Yeah.
And I was told this by an old taxidermy one time who's killed some monster bulls. He said, if you ever want to stop a bull, but you better be ready to shoot. If you ever want to stop a bull, it's moving through some trees, and you got to stop him right there, bark. Phew! I'm just doing that with my voice here, but you better be ready for the shot because they're not going to stick around. Just something. But anytime after a shot, make any. I don't care if it's a cow call or a bugle, any cow, because a lot of times, especially during archery, they don't even know they're hit half the time. Their adrenaline's so pumped up, they turn around and look, they hear that, and they're just looking, and all of a sudden, a couple seconds later, they're doing the old dance, and then boom, they fall over. I had that lots of times. I've got that a lot on video. So that's my
that same thing works if you're working in a pair. Make sure you're on the same page when your friend decides to do that and you're ready, because lots of times they'll do that and there's a big tree between you and your animal. Because I've had that on video. We had a big whitetail and I was muzzleloader hunting and my buddy grunted and I had no shot. He did it for his position, not for mine.
Oh, man.
Good.
Thanks, Landon.
Yep.
Okay, Murray, you're up next. Let's see if we can. Takes a second to. Oh, I'm not sure if his is working here. So Rick, we'll go to you. I just got on. There you go.
Hey, Muck. How often do you do elk hunting anymore? Or are you helping anybody elk hunt?
Well, I give up guiding several years ago when I took up doing outdoor videos. But last year, I went out with two friends and got 2 6x6s for them. And so I try to get out as much as possible. Of course, when you're the guy calling, you almost are always in the prime season somewhere else and never hunting. But now I'm going to try. See, I've never been drawn for elk, so that's one of the problems. I've never killed them. But I am going to go with Blair this year for 4 days in the archery season. So we're hoping we can work things out. But as soon as I get drawn, that'll make a big difference on what direction I go.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, and another Rick here. Hopefully you're there. Let's see if he's here. Rick, you're up. Oh, I gotta unmute you there.
Good.
Yeah.
Yep, no questions. This has been awesome. All the information has been great. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give Blair's secret weapon away to everybody right now. It's called raw garlic. That's a scent control because the animals smell that in the wild and they go, that can't be human. They don't even care what happens after that.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to, is there a way to Murray, and I'll try Murray one more time, and then Kathy, then we're out of here. I don't know, Murray's not, it's not working. So Kathy, your last one up. Are you there?
All right. So, this is the first year. My husband and I are going out, and for muck, the question is, do you use a bugle tube when you do cow calls? We're doing the late October 20th season, so.
Yeah, like I think I'm just going to mute you there, Kathy. Could we get some feedback? So yes, I do. Just like what Travis said earlier in the program, the reason I do it is because I'm kind of a, well, you could tell I'm a loud, boisterous person, but I find that using a tube to cow call projects it a lot farther away, because like we've already addressed that they got big lungs and they can call a long way too. So what I do is I use the cow call, and it's very directional with one of these. So when the bull's coming in, I'll just use my hand and go directional. But if I'm trying to project it a long ways, a tube like this, you can project that a long ways, because that's really quiet. And when you're in the bush, yes, I know that they can hear, but that you have to cover a lot more ground. So I use a bugle tube all the time to cow call until I get close enough where I think it's not practical, because it's not really, it's hard to call behind you with one of these unless I'm bugling. So then that's when I switch to my hands. So yes, I use a tube almost all the time for cow calling. I hope that addressed it.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we wrap up, I just want to, in a video I did prior to this, I talked about the rump shaker here that Travis sent me, and this is going to be a plug for Travis. The guy is amazing. Anybody that's ever contacted him, he will either make you a call if you're having difficulties, or he'll let you try out his stuff. And he's always given me the testers to try out and stuff like this. And he sent me this bugle tube, and he said to give it away to somebody here. So what I'm going to do, and believe me, this is probably the best tube I've ever used. I still have my original one from 1990, which is a Larry D. Jones. I had it. That's the first. I've never lost that. This is still the same call. But anyways, so I want to thank Travis for his generosity, his making the world's best calls. Travis, I want you to pick a number between 1 and 9, including 1 and 9. And that person is going to get this, and I'm going to make sure that I send it out to him.
Okay.
So you pick.
Go with my lucky number, number 7.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to bring that person up. Okay, Rick, you won the bugle tube.
Right on.
Congrats. It truly is the best bugle tube I've ever had. Like, there's so many things about this: the silicone tip, the mouthpiece, stuff like that. It's so comfortable to use. So that's courtesy of Travis right there, guys. Thank you to everybody that's joined. Darren, do you have anything you want to talk before we wrap it up?
Well, I want to extend a thank you to everybody that joined tonight. Dieter, it's good to see you. I'm glad.
Yeah, you too, buddy.
I haven't seen you for a while and talked to you, but I'm glad everything's okay in your neck of the woods. And Travis, can you give everybody just a quick plug of where they can visit you to see your product line?
Yeah, basically you can phone me direct right on my cell, 780-876-2170. And I do work a job full time. I work till 6 every night. So at work, I don't answer my phone a whole lot, just out of respect for my employers. But you can get me after 6 anytime. And then if you don't want to talk to me direct, also it's Wapiti River Outdoors.com. And it's super easy. I just have an online web store like that, and it's super easy.
Okay, Travis, I'll be putting my order in. Michael, Blair, thanks a lot, guys, for joining us tonight as well. Always the insights and the experience and stuff is really helpful. So, Mucker.
Yeah. So,
thanks, buddy.
So make sure if you want to. The thing about how many different models of reeds do you have, Travis?
There's got to be probably at least 20. I didn't go over. There's different sizes of. Basically, there's different sizes from here to here for the latex and the frame. So if you have I have a juniors or a ladies reed, you can see the size different is quite a bit. I don't know if you can see that on camera or not, but so people have different size pallets. So it's not one size fits all. Most people fit a regular size frame, but if you have a smaller pallet, we do have a smaller frame as well for that. And there's a few people, even bigger guys, believe it or not. One of my hunting partners, he uses a small reed, and I just call it a smaller reed. It's it's made for kids and juniors and ladies, but we all have different size pallets. So if you find that reed, not so much the tape part, but the frame part is touching your inside of your teeth on either side, then the reed's just a little bit too big for you. So just go down a size. So.
Okay, well, check them out, guys. Honest to God, the best calls ever. So, Mike, just kind of give a outline of what we're going to do here with you in a couple weeks.
Yeah, so just to reiterate there, so we're going to be setting up a YouTube live elk calling seminar, and we're going to get Travis and Dieter on there, and we're going to go into actual practical elk calling, teaching, educational stuff. So we'll be covering cow calls and bull calls, different types of bugles. I know we touched on a bit today, but we'll be giving breaks during that seminar to allow you guys to try them out. So kind of gives you 2 weeks heads up to get your orders in. Let Travis know, maybe get a read, or if you've got other calls, and then we'll be able to answer your questions during the live feed in the comment feed there. So we will nail down a date within the next 1 or 2 days here, and then that'll go out on all of our social medias. So just stay tuned for that.
Give yourself a plug for what you got going on with your program as well.
Yeah, so right now we're just we got a YouTube channel, Pursue the Hunt, and we do all our hunts up here in northern BC. We've just got such a variety of game, so that's where we're kind of kicking things off, and then hopefully growing from there. And then we also do educational tips. I'm starting to switch over to bow hunting, so just giving some tips on how to prep for bow hunting, just different shooting positions, tuning broadheads, all that kind of stuff too. So check that out.
Yeah, check him out, guys. He's got a great YouTube channel, great video chatting like what we're doing, as well as his hunting videos are world class. Dieter, for you, what do you got going on? And thanks for coming.
Well, it's just our busy season right now. I work with Bowtech Archery, and I cover the southwestern part of the United States for my job. And so, yeah, it's just right now helping dealers out as much as you possibly can, because a lot of people are coming through the shops buying Bowtech bows and other bows as well. And just doing some scouting, and I got some buddies that drew tags for next month, and I'm just going to be helping them out since I didn't draw any good tags this year. I'm just helping out some friends and doing some hunting TV shows. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dieter. Greatly appreciated. And Blair, I'm going to see you in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Okay, guys. You know what? It's fair to say, I can say this on behalf of everybody. If you get anything from this presentation, you got to get yourself some cow calls, because at the end of the day, you could be the best bugler in the world, and that certainly will work. But if you listen to this program, you know that all of us had one thing in common, and that's to be, to various cows. And remember that calling for people is different than calling for animals. And so what I always say is, don't be scared to try calling. Just because you don't think you sound good, that doesn't necessarily mean a wild animal's not going to. So go get yourself some calls, practice with them. And at the end of the day, it's just getting out there and trying and doing it. You're not going to be successful if you stay home, or you're not going to learn to call if you don't try. So just get out there and do it. So thanks, everybody. Darren, as always, thanks. I know it's been a busy summer. Hopefully we can still continue to do this stuff. And thanks, everybody, for joining. The next up, we're going to be talking about maybe talking some archery, hunting, and stuff like that. And of course, we got Mike's online seminar on YouTube. So, guys, thanks again. Take care and stay healthy, most importantly. And well, good luck in the fall, everybody elk hunting.
All right, thanks,
Yeah.
Max.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for having. Yep. Thanks,
Take
guys.
care. Thanks, everybody.